Project Geekology at your service. We'll take on any episode for the right price. And that is a quote, a direct quote from Cad Bane. Not really, but I am one half of your host, Anthony. Oh, this is episode 120, and we are covering Tales of the Underworld, Star Wars. And joining me, as always, is
Dakota, and actually you're 1/3 of the regular hosts on Project Geekology now, because we've had Rich on for probably, 20 episodes at this point?
You
Rich?
are right. I am just so conditioned to say that.
You're conditioned. It's been years of that, and now you got to change. Life is all about change, buddy. Rich, how you been?
Pretty good, just working hard, excited to be here. Just, working for other people's sunrises. It's just, that's what I've been doing lately.
Ah, little Andor reference.
Yeah, one that I'll never see, but really, yeah. Obviously, watching the end of Andor, loving that, just absolutely, really enjoying it. As I said last time, just going. It makes season 1 even better. I really think so.
I think we need to briefly touch on Andor season 2 now that it's concluded. Even before we talk about what else we've been up to for the over the past week. Anthony, are you caught up?
No, I still have a few more episodes that I gotta cover, but I don't want us to get too deep into talking about Andor because we are gonna cover it at some point.
Sure, I do agree with that. It's currently the best show on TV. And it probably is one of the best, if not best ever shows on TV. So it's the first live action series to have 5 episodes in a row on IMDb that are rated 9.5 or higher. It's the first show ever, live action anyway, to get that feat. So it's episodes 8 through 12 are all 9.5 to 9.8. And it's I've never seen a show end on such a high note. And I'm so excited and sad that it's gone, and or not gone, but it's over. But yeah, I can't wait to talk about Andor season 2, because that is literally, I don't think we're ever going to get anything like that again. It's just lightning in a bottle. And I hope, I do hope that they take lessons from the reception of Andor. It's good. Everyone considers it's good. It's this is what we want. Not necessarily tonally, but if everything's written this way, if everything's produced this way, you got a recipe for success for the next 10, 20 years. So
there were a number of things that occurred in the show that I knew were going to have to happen, right? Just because I've watched the other stuff, and I still found myself on the literal edge of my seat. I know people say that, right? But I'm on my couch and I'm watching Andor, and I'm on the actual edge of my couch, chewing my fingers,
biting
with the
nails.
Screen, because I tend to watch it on my iPad a lot in front of me. So 3 inches from my face, biting my nails like crazy. It just was riveting television. And what I think I appreciate about it is, I think normally with superhero stuff or Star Wars stuff, I don't really question what's going to happen. I kind of know how it's, when Infinity War ended, right? Was it Infinity War or Endgame? Infinity War is the first one, right?
Yeah.
When Infinity War ended and, Thanos snaps everyone. Sorry, spoiler alert. If you haven't seen that, that's on you. When he snaps everyone, but people walking out of the theater, and I was just my guys, cheer up. This is part 1, baby. This is not how it ends,
Wait, they lose the event? The good guys lose? I don't believe it.
As much as I loved it, I wasn't truly moved by many deaths. I don't think we got to see the impact a lot of it, but I don't know. There's something about Andor that had me watch something that's under the kind of umbrella of my favorite fantasy genre kind of going on. And what ends up happening is they've created riveting television, and there are no lightsabers.
I think with Infinity War is that they kind of pointed out who was dead completely and who was going to be coming back. Whereas Andor, we only knew, there was only a couple of people that, Andor and Mon Mothma that we knew that was going to live on.
Yeah, it's one of those things where
it's
so difficult to watch, because you know that there's only like a couple characters who have plot armor, and there really isn't like a lot of plot armor, because we know Cassian Andor does not survive the Rogue One. So it's like we're watching this guy like walk towards his doom, but it's just brilliantly written. It's so good. We got to talk about it soon. I'm excited to get onto Andor season 2.
Yeah, man. Maybe in 2 years.
Anthony, I'm gonna kill you.
Hey, dude, look how long it took for us to cover the first season.
Yes, and that was a mistake. Well, actually, no, it wasn't a mistake, because now we have Rich, and we have some extra commentary that we didn't have last time. So it's okay.
Well, I mean, extra commentary being Met's lore, and that's somehow inserted into the Star Wars universe.
I'm sure there will be no Mets lore today. There's nothing more that we need to know about the Mets. Rich is just biting his tongue right now.
Just keep going, guys.
Yeah. So Andor. So I still think the third arc, the one that dropped last week, which was episode 7, 8, and 9, was the strongest week, and it was a little bit of a dip in quality this week because it's a tie-in to Rogue One. Like everything's leading up to the events that spark Rogue One. So it's even more bottlenecked in the 3 last episodes, because we know now's the time. This is it. It's one BB-8. Everything's going to come to a head right here. But what they were able to accomplish with that third arc on Gorman and Mon's speech, crazy. We'll talk about it soon. But yeah, Rich, you brought up Andor, so I'm going to shoot it over to Anthony. What have you been up to this week?
Man, I've been actually kind of a bit on a anime tear. I've been watching, just kind of catching up on a couple things, or I rewatched the last season of Demon Slayer because we have that movie that's coming out soon. And I've been watching, so My Hero Academia has a spinoff called Vigilantes. So I've been watching that, and it takes place before, I think, even season 1 of My Hero Academia. Yeah, because All Might is pretty much in full swing. That's and cool. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Seeing these, these are characters that have, abilities that might not seem as useful. One, he names himself Crawler, and he literally can just it's slip and sliding on the ground as long as he has 3 points of contact. One has a jump ability, and she's a kind of a freelance J-pop idol that sings concerts on the street. And the other one's an older guy, and he has no quirk at all, but he's just super strong, dude. He fights one of the heroes because one of the heroes thought he was being a villain, and
he just got that old man strength.
Yeah. When he realized that this guy was not using a quirk and he was just using strength, he's like, wow.
Whoa.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, no, so I've been watching Tales of the Underworld. I didn't watch it fully twice, but I did watch at least the first arc twice because of me catching it, in that pre-release and Fortnite. But yeah, man, nothing too insane for me this week. How about y'all? How about you, Rich? Let's shoot it over to you.
I think I'm finally going to pull the trigger and get Oblivion Remastered. I've just been seeing so much stuff. It's on my YouTube. I accidentally watched one video, and then there was an avalanche, and I kept watching
It's
them.
an accident, I promise.
Yeah, I think I want to get back into it. I really love the world of Skyrim, and I've tried to play even the PS5 version, and I don't know. The visuals are a little too dated for me right now. Every time I play it, I end up wanting to go back to Red Dead or something because of the visuals. And what I'm seeing from Oblivion is great. And I saw a clip that really made me want to buy it, and it's kind of weird, but it was a clip of somebody said they've remastered the audio. All right, so they had people literally they re-recorded the parts. They recast some people to read the parts, and they still kept some of the original dialogue where this one lady's talking about.
What about Patrick Stewart? Did they get him back in the?
Well, no, they didn't get him back. But some of the side people, and they have one woman who's she's what's the fine for necrophilia here? And then she goes, oh, that's it? In Morrowind, it was 500. And, you're just wow. And then there's one where he where a bounty hunter basically says, "Oh yeah, no, so I walked into the party and I had to kill a 6-year-old girl. It's part of the job," and it's just like. Nowadays, you probably wouldn't find that kind of dialogue in something, and I kind of love that they've redid it and still stood firm. So,
okay, that's cool. Yeah, that's pretty neat.
That clip might lead me to buy the entire game.
I have fond memories of playing Oblivion over like the summer breaks of school, and my favorite thing about that game is that you could just spam certain actions,
jumping.
You can keep jumping, and you'll keep getting better at jumping.
Yes,
your jumps will get higher and higher. Your I think it's called acrobatics.
Yes.
You can bring your acrobatics skill like to a point where you can jump over like buildings, or like at least almost jump over buildings, and it's insane.
My friend Frank, I remember the first time he came over to play it, he's just hopping all the time. I guess he's moving through, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm raising my acrobatic skill, man. Never waste any motion." And I was like, "That's a little crazy." And then 2 weeks later, I'm doing the same thing.
It's amazing. And it totally breaks the game because, then you can do the, like just slashing and attacking, and it just like everything you do just continuously like progresses until you reach, I think it's like 99 is the highest level.
Yeah.
Or I don't think it gets 100, but yeah, good times with Oblivion. What else have you been up to?
Just unfortunately, I'm in the middle of a kind of hectic week at work where I get paid to be silent. 17 consecutive days of Rich Lacconi being asked to just not talk and watch kids test. So it's not the most fun, but as we were speaking about earlier, sometimes you just find the time to maybe multitask and listen to something while you're supposed to be doing something else. So I will not confirm nor deny listening to anything while I was proctoring, but Tales of the Underworld was watched 3 times. I'm not sure if you would call that a coincidence, but...
It's an interesting coincidence.
Yes.
I will call that a coincidence.
Thank you. In case the International Baccalaureate is listening, I just want to be clear. There's not an admission of guilt.
No, of course not. It just 2 things happen to be true. Separately.
So what have you been up to, Dakota?
A lot of work, like actual work, boring, old work. I did listen and or watch the Tales of the Underworld a second time while I was at work. This is an admission to guilt, and I doubt anyone from my job is ever going to hear this. So, but anyway, no, I'm an electrician. I was working on outlets for hours. So I just, plop my phone down on the ground, click play, and start splicing wires together. That's all I do. It was fun, getting bite-sized Star Wars while I was at work. So that's been good. Usually I like to listen to audiobooks and occasionally podcasts. But yeah. Oh, a fun thing that I was doing this week is I don't usually make playlists. That's not something that I'm big on. But like music playlists I don't usually do because I like listening to albums in their full. But recently I've gotten into the habit of listening to like Apple Music's recommended playlists based on, just what I'm into or like what is currently downloaded onto my phone. And it's sometimes really annoying because I know that I listen to like film soundtracks occasionally, but when I'm listening to like music or like an artist that I'm really into or whatever, and then it like cuts to John Williams or Howard Shore or any of those, excellent composers, it's a total vibe shift. And I'm just like, I wish Apple Music had an option where I could just say no more film scores, no more Disney movie soundtracks. I don't want that when I'm listening to...
No, I got it in my head. You're listening to Getting Jiggy with It, right? And you're just like, na, 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 na. And then suddenly like Star Wars themes hits and you're like, man, there goes my whole vibe.
Yeah, so... But anyway, I have kind of like worked my algorithm a little bit so that it doesn't happen too often anymore. But I've been thinking about like music in general recently and like why certain songs like resonate with me and others don't. And one thing that I've found is that I really like longer songs. I always find that if there's a song that's like 2 or 3 minutes, 4 minutes that I really like, I always get a little disappointed because it's over too soon, So I started creating a playlist called Songs That Transcend the 6-Minute Divide. And it's specifically songs that I like or songs that fit my vibe or mood, but they have to be over 6 minutes. And I've got about 20 songs on the playlist now, just based on like my listening habits. And I'm not like looking for the songs, but you know, like if they pop up on my recommended music, I'm like, maybe I'll add this one. So I've been working on that. So it's a pretty fun playlist. And right now it's mostly like very moody and brooding, but that's kind of me. But anyway, what else have I been up to? I've been doing a lot of writing. Last time I think I was saying that I was writing the Avatar Kuruk era. Mm-hmm. I'm done with the Avatar Kuruk era. I'm well into Avatar Kyoshi. And like I'm really picking up speed on that, and I'm really excited because, you know, once I get past Kyoshi and Roku, then I can talk about the shows. I can talk about the Last Airbender and, you know, Legend of Korra. Then I'll truly be in like the modern eras of the Avatarverse, and I can finally hone in on that. So I'm excited about that. My video's very long. I think I'm nearing 20,000 words, and I'm still in the Kyoshi era. So I do expect this to be a multi-hour documentary style thing, but it's a project that I'm really excited about. So yeah, that's what I'm working on right now.
Is that gonna be like a one video type thing, or are you gonna do it like are you gonna split it up?
So I made a video a couple months ago where I broke down how many avatars there have been, and I calculated based on quotes from the creators and stuff that Korra is the 99th avatar, and the avatar after Korra will be the 100th. That is actually mostly taken from this video that I'm working on right now. So that's a portion of the video that I'm working on. Like my actual timeline, I took a chunk of that out and I made a separate video. But once I'm done writing the script and recording, I'm thinking that as I go through my edit, I'll release chunks of it. So, you know, era of Rava and Wan, then like some of the like mystery eras, because there's like 7,000, 8,000 years worth of stuff that we don't fully know about, but I have a lot of like history that I've kind of planted in there. So I can make a whole video about that. I can do a video about like the lesser avatars like Gun, Salai, and Zito. Then I can do a whole video on Yang Chan. I could do a whole video on Kyoshi and Roku and maybe even Kuruk. So I think I'm going to release it in parts, but also have a full video that you can go, like if you don't want to watch it in like chunks, you can just watch it straight through basically. So that's kind of what I'm hoping to do.
I think you should do it like Ironheart, you know, just drop half the season in one day and then half the season the next week, and you know.
Is that what they're doing?
Yeah, apparently they're just going to drop it in like 2 chunks.
I mean, it's hard to say that, like, especially after Andor, where they were releasing 3 episodes a week, which is a lot of content. Like, that's a movie length's worth of content every week. It's hard to say that doesn't bode well for Ironheart, because a lot of times when they release a show in its entirety, it's usually a sign that they don't expect it to have much leg.
Oh, okay. So chunking's a little bit better. All right, fair.
Yeah, but Andor was different in the sense that like each week was supposed to be its own movie, basically. Mm-hmm. You know, so
they're releasing like arcs essentially. Yeah.
That's exactly it. Yeah, they were releasing arcs. Yeah, but yeah, I think that's all I've been up to. I'm gonna say that's all I've been up to. Let's jump into Tales of the Underworld, people.
Are you sure it's not the Underground?
I keep off camera saying we're covering Tales of the Underground or Tales from the Underground, and it sounds like a hip hop album from the 90s.
Yep.
Tales from the Underground. I wouldn't be surprised if it was. But yeah, so in past years, specifically every May 4th for the past 3 years, Lucasfilm has released a new series of short form videos or short form stories. 2 years ago, on May 4th, 2023, they released Tales of the Jedi, which featured 3 episodes of Ahsoka Tano and 3 episodes of Dooku Sereno. And I really love that one. I still think that's the best of these like episode drops. Then the year after, May 4th, 2024, they released Tales of the Empire, which it featured, oh man, I forget the girl's name.
Yeah, Barriss?
Yes, there was Barriss Offee. She had 3 episodes that take place post Order 66. And we also got, I think her name is Morgan. I forget the other girl's name. Oh man, it's like killing me. The girl from season 2 of Mandalorian, who like ran that town, and Ahsoka had to fight. I forget her name.
Bo-Katan?
Oh yeah.
Are you talking about Bo-Katan?
Yeah, no.
Oh,
I know who you're talking about. Yeah, no, you're right, Dakota.
The witch,
Yeah.
like the one who
she's related to like
tells them and them.
Yeah,
The witch sisters.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm
Morgan,
drawing a
it's like,
blank
was
there.
it like Morgan Le
No,
Fay
no,
or
you're
something?
right. No, you had it right.
Was it Morgan?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah, because
cool.
it's supposed to be almost like a Morgan Le Fay reference from the Arthurian tales.
That's what you mentioned Morgan Le Fay, and I was just like, yeah, that sounds right. But I think it's a little different than that. But yeah, it's definitely based on that. That was last year's 6 episodes, the Barasafi and Morgan. And now this year, we have 3 episodes of Asajj Ventress and 3 episodes of Cad Bane. Really quickly, how do you guys rank Tales of the Jedi, Tales of the Empire, and Tales of the Underworld? Not underground, Underworld.
I think I go Jedi, Underworld, then Empire.
Yeah, I go with that ranking too.
I like Dooku.
Okay.
I like Dooku too. Like I love Dooku so much, and in some ways, almost I think that's why I love this one so much, because I definitely feel way more attached, like, to Asajj Ventress at the same time.
Yeah,
So I'm a little different from you guys. I would choose Jedi, Empire, and Underworld. Underworld being the last for me. I have some criticisms that I'm going to explore later, but for me, the reason I choose Jedi first is because Tales of the Jedi were completely separate stories. They were short stories that didn't really tie into one another, besides like the thematic arc of one's life. That's kind of how that series went. Then the Barriss Offee stories in Tales of the Empire were a little bit more streamlined. Same with Morgan's. It was a 3-episode story instead of 3 separate stories, if you know what I mean. So it was no longer really tales. It was a tale of Barriss and a tale of this girl. And this one, I think, like the Asajj Ventress one, is probably like the most egregious, where it's just like 3 very consecutive, like they take place days apart, each of the 3 Asajj Ventress stories. And that really bothered me because it's no longer the same format that they were trying to do in the first place. And I mean, maybe they were never planning to stick to that format. I don't know. Maybe I'm being too critical there, but that really bothered me because I want variation. I want to see different points of this person's life. It seems clear to me they just wanted to tell a specific story.
yeah. See, I get that. I think the reason why I place Underworld second is because when Cad Bane rolls around, that was definitely the strongest storyline. And to be honest with you, I felt like that storyline was stronger than both the Barriss and the Morgan ones.
You're right.
And
I would agree with that.
I would say that's what carried, because I definitely agree with you with the Asajj one. I mean, it was cool seeing Asajj, in her like kind of gray Jedi kind of like form. She's obviously not like, trying to go straight towards the life of a Jedi, but she has that desire to help a little bit just in her own way. So it was cool seeing that, and the way that they tied in Dark Disciple with it, I thought that was really cool. But man, like that Cad Bane one was so good. I really enjoyed the Cad Bane side of that show.
Yeah. Which of these 2 arcs did you more resonate with, Rich?
So before I heard you say anything, I was going to go with Asajj Ventress. I just really like her character. I don't know how to put it. When she comes on screen, when she came on, I was like, Asajj. I feel I know her a little bit more than I know Cad Bane. I did like seeing, obviously, Cad Bane and live action and everything. But I don't know. For me, I think it's just, I really like Dark Disciple. So seeing that kind of played out here was, as Anthony said, was definitely a treat for me. And yeah, I mean, but then, you do say that this is only like one like 3-day arc in her life. And I'm like, man, I didn't think about it until now. I'm like, yeah, you're right. I kind of wish it was a little spread apart in her life and we would have seen a little bit of different kind of moments of her, maybe, you know, somewhere with Dathomir or something, or I don't know, just a little bit of a break. But I think a part of the issue with that is a lot of her stuff was covered in, I'm going to say the wrong one, but Rebels? No. Clone Wars?
Clone Wars,
yeah. I knew I was going to say the wrong one. Because they're all...
It's a 50-50 show.
I watched...
Unless you're also throwing Bad Batch into the scene. And then
there you go.
Technically, she does show up in Bad Batch.
Yeah, I watched, I kind of binged I had kind of ignored the Star Wars cartoons for a while. I'll say animation, sorry. And I don't know why. I was really resistant to any of... I kept putting them on, and I even tried with Charlie, and it wouldn't stick. I'd watch 3 episodes, and then I would be like, I don't even know what happened there. I don't know why. And it kept happening until Bad Batch came out. And then once Bad Batch came out, I was able to kind of go through that, and I really liked it. And then I went back and watched everything together. So I really like Asajj in the animation that I've seen before.
Okay, yeah. Did I hear that correctly, that you have also read Dark Disciple?
Yes.
All right, so that's pretty cool. We got 3 panelists who have all read Dark Disciple. I think we've also all read Light of the Jedi.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we did an episode on that one. So,
we did an episode on that one, but this is probably the closest we'll come to a Dark Disciple-esque episode. So for those of you who are listening and have not read the book or don't know what we're talking about, it's one of the first books that came out after Disney bought Star Wars and reset the canon. And Dark Disciple follows season 6 of the Clone Wars. Season 7 was canceled briefly before it was picked up later, but one of the story arcs was an 8-episode story arc written by Katie Lucas, which is George Lucas's daughter, and it was called Dark Disciple, and it was the story of Asajj Ventress and Quinlan Vos falling in love, and it's like her break away from Dooku and turning to the light side. And it's a beautiful story, and it was after it was canceled because they canceled season 7. Christy Golden wrote it into a novel form, and it is totally canon. It's extremely strong. It's one of the stronger books in the canon, and it's really sad. I remember where I was the first time I was listening to it. I was working on cars. I was detailing cars at the time, and I was on some used car lot, in a Range Rover dealership, and I just remember because it was winter, there was snow everywhere, and I was just I fell onto the snow. I was like, no. I was tearing up in the Range Rover parking lot. That was a fun time. But this episode, the first episode with Asajj Ventress, begins at the end of that novel. So, spoiler alert, Asajj Ventress dies in that. Quinlan Vos and Obi-Wan Kenobi bring her back to Dathomir, put her in some green goo, some green liquid.
They put her in the Lazarus pit,
They put her in the Lazarus pit. It's the same place that they dropped Imhotep in The Mummy, right before he goes, death is only the beginning. And yeah, so that's where this episode starts. We have Mother Talzin basically giving her an ultimatum, you can chill with us. We're cool, we're all swimming here. We're all ladies. But you can go back to the living world. But the only thing is, you cannot have your heart's desire. And that was an interesting ultimatum. I like that. Shakespearean. I like when Star Wars does stuff like that. But my issue is they don't really explain what that means. Because does that mean Quinlan Vos can't see her? Can't love her anymore? Does that mean she can't love Quinlan Vos? Because she then spends the next 3 episodes searching for him. And she comes very close to, potentially seeing Quinlan Vos. There's the idea that Quinlan Vos might be on that ship leading to the path, to take wayward Jedi to safety.
Yeah, it was cool hearing about that again, too, the path.
Yeah, something brought up in Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
That they are just very good at weaving stuff together over the span of different series. But yeah, so what is your take on the ultimatum / curse that Mother Talzin put on Asajj so that she can live again? Can she still love Quinlan Vos? Can Quinlan Vos still love her? Or is it just too vague currently?
Maybe it's
obviously she still felt something,
Yeah.
She was I mean, that was the whole reason why she was kind of looking for the path, with, what was his name again? The kid?
Lyco.
Yeah, Lyco. So, obviously there were some feelings on that end. Maybe the ultimatum was, I don't know. Maybe it was a little bit deeper than that. Maybe because, that was, because she was kind of, I guess, like, it was almost like she was being reborn again. And so it's like that was part of like another part of her life. And so I guess, yeah, she's just trying to, I guess, live in a way that would make him proud, I guess. Quinlan Vos.
Yeah. What are your takes on it, Rich?
I mean, I could see it being something like I'll call it the rogue curse, where she went to go touch him, she would be enveloped in like the green magic of the witches of Dathomir, and that touch would kill Quinlan.
Or completely separate them,
like
or maybe like they would be incapable of touching it. That would be interesting. I could actually see that, because the magic with a K that they have, the witches of Dathomir, I feel like that's something that I like that theory. Let's send it over to Dave Filoni, and hopefully in a couple years we'll get a full series. No, this is our little writer's room. We're working away at scripts over here.
And I feel like there will be something at some point, I think.
There's got to be. That's the thing with Dave Filoni, like, love him or hate him, he's not going to let his box of toys die. They're just going to keep on living so that they can just keep going through more stories. The only one who I think can't, just because it was a perfect death, is Kanan Jarrus. Spoilers.
I'm not sure if that's spoiled. Yeah.
Dude, I mean, like, I feel like once it's been out for a while, if you haven't seen it, then, the spoiler thing is kind of on you.
Wait, did Thanos win?
Wait, Bruce Willis was a ghost?
That's kind of why, like, I guess in a way that's why I'm like, okay, let's buffer Andor a little bit. Let it, kind of marinate a little bit before we start talking spoilers. We're not big enough to hop on things right away.
I do think at some point I would like to do a couple episodes, not necessarily of Andor, but a couple episodes in a row of stuff that is either coming out that week or coming out within a certain amount of time, because I'm curious if people will, because I think the people who are listening actively to podcasts or searching for podcasts to listen to are people who are fresh off of that topic, or it's in their minds, so they want to check it out. So I feel like, I think that would be like just to test out the numbers, see if there's any particular bump, because that might actually help us out.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely open for that. I guess I don't want to be confined to that, if that makes sense.
You don't want the whole show to be topic of the week, and like whatever's like coming out.
Which house?
I just want to talk about stuff we like, But yeah, no, I mean that could line up to things that we like.
Yeah, totally. I'm
so is it Housewives or Love Island? I just want to know which one that we're looking at. I don't even know if those shows are on. I didn't see.
It's Love on the spectrum.
Too hot to handle.
I literally tried to pick the most detestable shows I could think of that are possibly still on television.
90 Day Fiance.
I think there was a clip from one of those shows where this guy had seemingly like no neck, all right, and my students decided to
Big Al or Big Ed?
Yes.
Yeah, it's Big Ed. I know exactly.
So
yeah.
like they were spamming me. They were spamming me like when I was teaching, like I think hybrid. They'd something like, Mr. Oconee, this guy looks like you, and they'd drop it in the chat, and I'd be like, this is so offensive to me. I'm like, I have a neck.
Not them saying that's your doppelganger.
They said that, and William H. Macy from, what's the series? I've never seen it before. It's like acclaimed, a series that he's on.
William H. Macy. I can't remember who that is.
He's on like this HBO series. Sorry.
Oh,
Shameless.
He's in Shameless.
Shameless. Yeah, they saw Shameless.
Oh, he's
and
a
they're
great
like,
actor, yeah.
that looks like you. I'm like, that's just a random white guy with like longish hair and facial hair. That doesn't classify me as him. Like,
kids are ruthless. Speaking of 90 Day Fiance, like I actually did like during COVID, like me, my wife, and like her in-laws would just like sit and watch seasons of 90 Day Fiance, like
Oh my
on
goodness.
just in a row, just like on the couch. Like we would go on like, and I would poke holes in it left and right because that stuff is all fake. There's like they would like be fighting and like the girl would like run off and like the cameramen are all like, we don't know where she is, and like she's just sitting in a car in the background. Like we know where she is. She's right over there. It's so stupid.
Or they don't know
man.
they don't know where someone is, but there's a camera following them.
Yeah, exactly. So good stuff. Yeah, that's the origin.
How about
of,
90 Day
my time with Big Ed.
Fiance, Cad Bane, and Asajj Ventress?
I wouldn't hate it. I think. No, all right. So let's. What do we think about Lyco, the new Padawan? Oh, actually, before we jump into that, when do you guys think this takes place? Because I'm at a loss. It's short enough where Lyco, a former Padawan, is still seemingly a teenager, right? Okay. So he hasn't got his knighthood yet, presumably, and he's all alone. No one here beside me. And sorry, I have like the donkey song. I'm all alone. There's no one here beside me in my head. So he's young enough for Order 66 to still be quite recent. But we now know that the Inquisitors are fully in gear. There's another pointless Inquisitor where they immediately offed. But then there's enough time has passed for Quinlan Vos to have created the Path, which I assumed would be something like late in the game, like after like he's accumulated a bunch of resources, a bunch of people in the background. That's something that I assumed would have taken a long time to like come together. But I don't know. I'm having a hard time placing this one.
So maybe it could be safe to say that it might kind of reside around when Obi-Wan takes place.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know because Lyco's too young for that. He's still... Obi-Wan takes place... Oh, no. Obi-Wan... Yeah, I guess it could be around Obi-Wan.
Yeah, I mean, Lyco... Yeah, he is young, but, I mean... There's all.
No, you're right.
It
you're right.
seems
he
like
could have
there's
been a youngling. He could have been a youngling.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
He doesn't give.
Yeah,
me
or younger on the Padawan side because he did have a little bit of proficiency with the lightsaber.
Yeah, it's a conundrum.
I didn't get him.
A conundrum.
Do you feel like he's Jedi Temple like survivor youngling?
He might not have been at the Jedi Temple, but he's definitely a survivor of Order 66.
Okay, no, I just want to. I'm pretty sure that Anakin's pretty effective. He killed all the younglings in the temple.
I mean, with the existence of characters like Ezra, somebody who learned the ways after the fact.
Like, do you think that Lyco is better than Ezra?
No. Whoever he was with, definitely, they got killed while he was in the midst of training.
Yes. Yeah, that's the vibe that I got. He's kind of like a Kanan Jarrus, who, his master died protecting him during Order 66, and, he grew up kind of semi a Jedi, but not really a Jedi until like he was ready to take on that role again. So it kind of seems like that could be the case. Or same goes for, oh man, who's the kid from the Jedi Order games? I forget his name.
Oh, you're talking about Cal Kestis?
Yes, Cal Kestis also kind of falls into that boat. There's a lot of Jedi out there, guys.
Jedi.
So we're saying that, Yoda was a liar when he said that Luke would be the last Jedi.
Unless something like really terrible happens to Quinlan Vos and like, I mean that still could happen. Like that would be a crazy story. Just like literally the rest of the Jedi are found.
I understand that it's Yoda and he said it, but Yoda was also on the planet of Dagobah, kind of like Luke was later. He was on this dark nexus of evil cave thing that kind of offset and hid him from being able to be read. I just think that I know Yoda said it. I don't think the idea that we have. Like, Yoda was wrong about so much. Yoda could have told Anakin, like, hey, it sucks to lose somebody. And, it really hurts. And maybe you should process those feelings instead of, like, it's good. Death is good. They embrace the Force, As the guy's sitting there in darkness, brooding because he's obviously upset, Yoda couldn't read his mind. He couldn't sense his emotions in that moment. I'm sorry to all those people out there that really ascribe to this theory, but I'm just like, no, man, Yoda can be wrong. That's what we learned. Like Yoda's folly, the fact that everyone always thought he was right was actually our folly and the galaxy's folly.
Well, that was the whole point of the prequels.
Makes me so angry. He's such a Like,
that was the whole point of the prequels, to really like show how dogmatic the Jedi were.
yeah, just,
You know?
yeah, it made me wonder.
I mean,
what the
they had
Force.
some good principles, of course, but there was definitely a lot of emotion. You know, a lot of stuff that, like, if you told a therapist that you were doing that, they would be like, "No, that's unhealthy." You know,
Yeah,
it's kind of
so-
stifling emotions, pretty much.
What I will say about the Asajj Ventress episodes, I really liked the way that they started it with this new intrigue that she's back, but like they don't give a why. It's just like this is happening now. She's back, and they don't really follow up on that meaningfully enough for it to really make those episodes worth it for me. I guess I'm happy that she's back. I'm interested about what happens to this Lyco kid.
Right.
But it wasn't in again, I would like we were saying earlier, it would have been better if these were three like disparate stories, like completely separate, and not telling one incomplete arc. Honestly, it wasn't even like they never really resolved anything besides, I'm gonna stick with you. Like that was the gist of the arc.
Yeah.
But anyway, final thoughts on these 3 episodes, guys?
I thought it was cool to like kind of see Gray Jedi Asajj, like, you know, in a animated format, you know, rather than, I mean, Dark Disciple was amazing, and obviously, you know, listening to the audiobook was pretty much like listening to, you know, like radio, but it was cool to like actually see it visually too.
Yes. Rich, what do you think?
I truly enjoyed.
And don't take what I was saying, like the criticisms that I was saying, to like negatively impact your opinion of it, because I do want to hear your opinion.
Like, okay, so I'll admit, hearing what you said made me want that, but before you said that, I just really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed from the beginning. He tries to use the Jedi, you know, mind trick, and she's kind of like, "You idiot! Like, you're not doing, you know, like, what are you doing?
What a loser!"
Yeah, and she immediately kind of like, it's almost like a thief watching somebody trying to like pickpocket poorly, you know. I kind of really appreciated that. I liked the ending of the first episode. She's, you know, you gotta tell me who you are. And then I'm Asajj Ventress. I've probably killed many people that you've already known. You know, that I thought was pretty. That was awesome. I mean, that was like a moment where
that was cool. That was.
It reminded me of just, I know it's oft, but like when Macbeth gets confronted by young Seward in Act 5 of Macbeth, and he's like, you know, my name will scare you, and he's like, well, what is it? And he's like, my name's Macbeth. And I've always imagined it as my name's Macbeth and then a word for a female dog, because I just think it's his moment of just kind of, my name is enough to inspire fear. And when she says it, yeah, I get the same feeling. So I think it's just because I love the character so much. I hated her and then grew to love her because of Dark Disciple and everything I've seen. I think she's so interesting. I've always loved the Witches of Dathomir ever since I read The Courtship of Princess Leia, which is now legend, but it was one of the books that was supposed to take place right after Return of the Jedi, where basically Han and Leia go off and get married, and they go and they end up on this crazy planet with the Witches of Dathomir and riding rancors and stuff. That led to a lot of the stuff we see here. So I think I'm always going to like somebody who's tied to that Dathomir in some way, because Dathomir felt like one of the first really like nerdy places that I knew about, that like not even my other Star Wars friends knew about, because they weren't reading, they were just watching the stuff.
That's not real Star Wars, man. Real Star Wars ended with Return of the Jedi.
Exactly. So I think that the character of Asajj Ventress is just always kind of take precedence and really kind of make me pay attention more.
So you liked her moment of, my name is Inigo Montoya.
Yes. Unsurprisingly, I have that clip in my iTunes. So when I'm just driving, like that'll just pop on randomly, and it warms the cockles of my heart.
Love it. All right, let's talk about the Cad Bane arc. And the timeline for this is also kind of unknown, because I don't think we know canonically like how old Cad Bane is. But this all clearly takes place prior to Clone Wars. This is like very early Cad Bane lore, and it starts with him as a child, where he goes by Colby, and he has a best friend named Nero.
I know that part was like really sad.
Tell me your thoughts, Anthony. Hit me.
That that part was really sad. Like, when he's growing up on the streets of Duros, and yeah, just poor, no family, and pretty much, his buddy, that's his family. And, they come across a bounty hunter that looks very similarly to him when he gets older. They kind of come into money helping him out, and, his buddy gets caught. And it's kind of sad because, they get separated. He's sad that, he's, kind of lost his buddy. And so, in that moment, it's like, dude, that's really sad. His only family is, he's about to get separated from him.
Yeah, it was an interesting dynamic. And you kind of saw it coming. Or at least I did. I thought I kind of saw it coming.
Yeah.
In the sense that, one of these people is going to be Cad Bane, and one of them isn't. So you kind of think either this guy's going to die or he's going to get separated by them. And, as soon as the guy came in with, this is an investment, you kind of assumed at that point that he was going to take Cad Bane on, but not the other kid. And the other kid was showing reserve to, aiding this. I forget the Cad Bane lookalike guy's name, but he was showing reserve to it. Is this really worth it? And then Cad Bane, he's like, yeah, you're right. And then he turns around let's double the offer. I thought that was really funny. But I did thinking about it now, I do like the arc quite a bit. I think that they really made Cad Bane an unlikable character. He wasn't really a lot of people like Cad Bane just because he's the cool guy with the cowboy hat from, Clone Wars. And he's an excellent bounty hunter. And it was interesting learning about his backstory and how he became the cold-hearted man I am. I'm quoting nothing. I was just trying to mimic his voice.
You were trying to mimic his voice. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it does give you moments to sympathize with him. But because of his actions throughout the couple episodes, those brief moments of potential sympathy for the character are ripped right away just by his actions, if that makes sense. Rich, what do you think?
It's funny. I think I go into this with I wasn't a Cad Bane lover going into it. I mean, yeah, he looks pretty cool, but from what I'd seen of him in other Star Wars properties, I kind of just thought he was a heartless bounty hunter guy, and I assumed that he had a rough, he had a rough upbringing, and that hardened him as a young boy. And there's only two paths. Either you become Batman or you become the villain. I wasn't super surprised. Actually, what ended up happening at the end of the arc is I was like, gosh darn, I hate this man more than I thought I did before. I
yes,
always...
That's how I felt,
I
too.
never I didn't like him. I mean, it was cool to see him in live action, but I didn't, I don't have any love for the character. I'd much rather see, Reef Karga? Is that the character played by...
Grief Karga.
Right? From Mandalorian, right?
From Mandalorian,
That's my man from Rocky.
Carl Weathers.
Carl Weathers, baby.
Yeah.
All right. Also, by the way, just because this is tangentially kind of related, Carl Weathers is in Happy Gilmore, and the alligator who was in Happy Gilmore sadly died this week at the age of 80. So... But 80, yeah, 80 years. He's apparently a star of many. He's been the alligator in many movies. Not that I can name right now, but anyway.
That's crazy. I did not know that alligators lived 8 decades.
Crazy. I didn't know that either. I was like, what? I thought they were talking about Bob Barker. And I was like, no, Bob Barker died a long time ago. So I clicked and it's the alligator. But yeah, wow. I guess just that he's never been a character... I've always thought I liked Boba Fett, and I actually ended up liking him. I mean, this sounds crazy. On the Book of Boba, I liked him more. I feel like that disappointed more people than ever because it took away his mysteriousness and people didn't like what they found. And I think it's kind of a similar thing here with Cad Bane. Sometimes it's the mysteriousness of the character that makes them really cool. And I just think that if once you start giving us too much, it becomes like... that terrible Gambit character in the X-Men movies, just poorly well done. I mean, not done well because you somehow took the mystique away from that character.
Ooh, I'm about to make a name for myself.
Exactly.
I think so. So for me, Cad Bane is definitely, in this part of Tales of the Underworld, it was more geared towards fans of Clone Wars. Because that's where Cad Bane was that breakout character. One of the breakout characters in that show. He came out in that show, and that's where a lot of people liked him. I always thought that Cad Bane was really cool. I'm not going to go and say, like, oh, he's my favorite character, but I always thought that Cad Bane was really, really cool. And when I saw that, like, he had popped up in, Book of Boba Fett, like, I thought, like, like, that was kind of like a treat within itself. But, yeah, Book of Boba Fett, we've gone down that rabbit hole already, and I'm not going to talk much about it. But the thing is that, like, even with that being said, this side of Tales of the Underworld was the stronger side, even if it does take away, some of the, I guess, mystique of Cad Bane. The thing is that there's still a lot of mystique to him, because we had really never gotten anything about him except for the fact that he is a bounty hunter. We never had really gotten too much of his backstory. We just got him just hunting down bounties, and that's exactly what he did in Book of Boba Fett. We got a little bit more of him in some of the other animated series, especially Clone Wars. But, Cad Bane was definitely cool, and it was cool to see, a little bit of his upbringing. That story was actually broken up in the way that Dakota would have wanted the Asajj one to be broken up.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree.
The thing that I will say that was really cool about Asajj, and I forgot to pick this detail out, was that you can tell that she was aged. You saw it in her face.
Okay.
That there was that age there. So I thought that was really cool, some of that small detail. But yeah, the Cad Bane side of the story, I enjoyed it a lot. And it was really, really sad when he faced down his buddy Nero, because Cad Bane was with somebody called Aaron. And, when Cad kind of got sent off to prison for killing a marshal some years prior, some romance buds between Nero and Aaron. And, at some point, Aaron passes away, and, that pisses off Cad Bane. And, I think what really, like, made me sad was when he gunned down his buddy. The kid was there, but then, like, you realized whose kid that was.
And then he walked off to go get some milk.
Oh my God, not
and
the milk.
Cigarettes. Yeah, no, I tell every once in a while I'll tell my wife, all right, I'm gonna be right back. I'm gonna go get milk and cigarettes. And my son goes, what are you talking about? And my wife goes, no, that's not funny. Don't do that.
That's funny. That is funny. You can tell her Dakota said it is funny. No. So just to clarify, I wasn't saying that I didn't like this arc. I just said that, like, it makes Cad Bane a less likable character.
Right. Especially, like, by the end of it.
Yeah, he really becomes irredeemable at the end. He guns down his childhood buddy, Nero.
Do you think
after,
that, Nero could have just in the, like, I felt like there was, when he went to the doorway, like the kind of, he asked the boy to stand back, and he's kind of in front of him, right? And then he goes to do the duel. And the whole time I'm thinking, like, just yell, it's your son. It's your son, right? Like, and instead he, like, starts the duel steps and then obviously gets killed. Like, I don't get it. I don't know why he didn't just yell it out. Yeah,
it's also interesting, like, Cad Bane even says something like, don't worry, I'll look after you, like the kid, until he realizes it's actually his own kid. And then there has to be, like, some level of, like, oh man, I screwed this up. And he just, like, walks off, like...
I mean, it's even weird. I think I would have found it a little bit more believable if maybe Bane just shoots him in the back, I don't know. It was, like, a weirdly honorable way for him to kill his friend, and his friend knew it was coming, and all he had to do was kind of open his mouth for the sake of the boy. I don't even mean to save his own hide. Like, I didn't expect that from him, but it was just for the sake of the boy, because... even if Bane offers to take care of him, I mean, he just watched what kind of man his dad is. That can't be something you ever want to follow.
I don't think that Cad Bane would have been the type to gun down a childhood friend in the back, even though he was a deplorable character. He still he had that whole instance with the Marshal.
Okay,
And he had no emotional connection to the Marshal, and the Marshal killed his friend, so Laszlo. That was the guy that originally had the hat, and even he went with the whole like duel moment with
fair.
that. He could have just easily just pulled his gun and shot the Marshal in that instant, but no.
You a lawman now? You trying to make sense of these scripts?
Yeah, I don't know. Like even his character is cool though. Like I will say,
No, his
character
he's cold-hearted
is,
and cool. Yeah, like there's no doubt about it. And just like his entire vibe, even though he kind of emulates Laszlo, his entire vibe is very polished. And I will even go as far as to say he probably outstripped Laszlo's ability to be a proper gunslinger by the end.
He definitely, Cad Bane definitely pulls off the man with no name vibes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
From the good, the bad.
What did you think about his like original name, Colby?
I feel like it was believable. Like, you know, I think that Cad Bane is very much so like an alias. So the fact that his name was Colby before, like it made sense to me.
I will say Colby is a softer name, you know, like a Bobby. So I could see him shortening it to Bob or, you know, Cad in this instance. So it worked for me. You know, one thing that I really liked about this episode, the one thing that really stuck with me, you know, when they were kids, Colby and Nero were, you know, going from dumpster to dumpster, from trash can to trash can, pulling out like rotten fruit, and they were really looking for something juicy. But in the end, they got something even better. They got crunchies. So in the honor of that, I brought my own crunchies. I got my candies here. And, you know, usually we like to, you know, suggest that you guys review our podcast with a 5-star, like a juicy rating. But today, let's make it crunchy in honor of Nero and
the crunchies that they ate.
It's like,
yeah, and the crunchies that they ate with that one little coin.
That might be my favorite segue of all time. I was like, yeah, okay, yeah. Now they're going to the garbage. So I was like, oh, and then I saw where it was going. I want us to get advertisers on the show solely for us having the most awkward like segues into the commercial. Speaking of,
yeah, I think that we could like really like knock out advertising. Like really, like that was just a crazy segue right there, Dakota. To pretty much like ask for ratings, you know.
Yes, please give us a 5-star crunchy review, guys. Please make it crunchy this week, guys. Thank you so much for listening to us here for our 120th episode. Before we end the show, I just want to ask, what did you guys like? Final thoughts. What did you think of Tales of the Underworld as a whole? Rich, go ahead.
I had a really good time with it. I still find myself sometimes with the animation. I don't know what it is about my brain. I need to watch it more than once before I think I get fully engulfed in it. I also think that I might have enjoyed, and this maybe speaks to your point, I may have enjoyed, say, the Asajj Ventress just as one 45-minute episode.
Okay, yeah.
Because just that's the way that one went, right? Yeah. I think sometimes the 15-minute episodes are a little bit of a viewing anomaly for me. I'm kind of almost past the point where I very rarely watch anything that's under half an hour. So it was almost kind of jarring for me when they ended. But that's why I ended up rewatching them. And honestly, I really like them. If you haven't seen them yet, I would highly recommend sitting down. They're easily digestible. And I think that they give us a little bit more into two really interesting characters in the Star Wars universe.
Anthony, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think it was a really cool, you know, May 4th thing that they gave us, and I like that they're doing this stuff. It seems like yearly, and yeah, like Rich said, it was cool to see two characters that are definitely interesting, and, you know, I mean, obviously they both hold a place in my heart because, I mean, you know how much I like Clone Wars, and so the fact that they both originated from there and we got more of them, yeah, man, I thought it was awesome.
It was a good time. And, you know, in the moment when I'm watching these new Star Wars, it's only after the fact, you know, like when I come to the podcast or I turn my critical brain on after the fact is when I kind of start breaking it apart. But in the moment, I was totally enjoying all this. And that's not to say that it's bad. I don't think this was bad storytelling by any means. It just wasn't what I wanted from the format, I guess. So from that perspective, I had the issues. And even to a lesser degree, the Cad Bane story arc, even though it was 3 separate stories that took place over the course of years, they all were one arc, one story arc, versus the Count Dooku one and the Ahsoka one in the first season of Tales of the Jedi were completely separate stories each time. But anyway, I don't want to harp too much on that. That's just my personal takeaway. I do think that the Cad Bane trilogy of stories far outstripped the Asajj Ventress one. But Asajj Ventress for me is a more... I like Asajj Ventress as a character more than I like Cad Bane. So I think I was probably expecting more from that. But I also find this issue where a lot of times the bad characters, the enemies in one film or the enemies in one series, end up becoming kind of good guys. And that happens a lot in Star Wars. Like, it happens quite a bit. Off the top of my head, Boba Fett. They made a whole show about, like, the baddest bounty hunter in the galaxy taking over a crime ring so that he can do good. He can do good by this town. That's his goal.
Yeah, and make it into Mandalorian season 2.5.
Yeah, that was definitely Boba Fett's plan.
I think it's the truth is, in almost any storytelling device, right? The villain can only be a villain for so long before he's taken down. So if you want the villain to keep being a character, you kind of need to eventually have them not be a villain.
Well, that's also why I'm a little bit wary of the Darth Maul series that's coming out. It's called Maul. A couple of years, they're making an animated series called Maul. And that will, obviously, it'll take place with Maul. But yeah, eventually we're going to see Maul become a much more nuanced character, and he is already a nuanced character. Like, he shows up quite a bit in different mediums. But yeah, I'm worried that, like, all of these characters, like now Asajj Ventress is like a good guy. You have Boba Fett, who's like very clearly a good guy. It just happens a lot. It's a trope that I find not unenjoyable, just something that I'm noticing, and it's a pattern that I'm noticing that I'm just like, I don't want this to keep happening. So yeah, and I think that's kind of why I find Andor partially, like, I mean, it's a fantastic show, but like, the bad guys stay bad guys. Mm-hmm. They're not turning around, like, they're in too deep.
Yeah, like Kyburn, he just goes down,
Ugh. Yeah. So, guys, again, thank you for listening to us here for our 120th episode of Project Geekology. I have no idea what we're covering next week, but did you guys have any ideas as to what we're covering?
Not at the moment.
Survey says no, sir.
You will figure out what we're covering next week by listening. It'll pop up. You're going to subscribe to this podcast, put notifications on, and it'll pop up on your phone, your cellular or tablet device, when we're ready to release that information. So good luck to you. Guys, if you want to check out any of our socials, be sure to click into the show notes down below. And yeah, stay juicy, my friends.
Or stay crunchy.